All right, good morning, my friends. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Painting in Your PJs Live with Minette. I am Dr. Minette Riordan, and I got some crazy light going on here this morning. I always feel like, woo! Okay, feeling a little silly this morning and a little excited for our famous writer that we're going to be featuring this morning. So, for the last few weeks, I've been looking at famous women artists and creatives from the 19th and 20th century and really loving the deep dive into learning more about these women and their lives. And today I chose one of my favorite poets, Audre Lorde, who I am going to tell you more about in just a minute. But what I'm loving about this is how often we can look at stories of other people's lives or words they've written and really use them as introspection and getting curious about our own way of being in the world. So, Painting in Your PJs with Minette is all about using art as a creative process for personal growth and self discovery. And when we take time to look at other women's stories, it can give us a place to a place, a different question, a different perspective on really looking at our own lives as well. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here with me live. Thank you for watching the replay. If you're watching the replay, type replay below and let me know that you stopped by. If you're brand new here, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Click that subscribe button so you'll get notified when I do go live. And here we are. This is the most popular picture of Audre Lorde. It's been used in as inspiration in a lot of different art pieces. And I love this, the look on her face here. And so I have printed this out, cut it to more or less fit my journal page here. And I had so much fun with the watercolor markers in a couple of different projects, including the Georgia or Virginia Wolf that we did, that I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently today. So oftentimes we think that mixed media art has to be really complex and have lots of layers and use lots of different supplies. And I believe that art journaling can also be simple and not take hours and hours to complete a page. I love both types, the really layered pages, and sometimes what we need is a little bit of simplicity. And so as I'm watching this journal really start to fill up with these women and inspiration, and what's missing here are the lyrics to her song, Don't Be Misunderstood. I wrote some of those lyrics in here, but I haven't pasted them in. And I'm loving sort of just capturing some of the words and images. And it's becoming like a scrapbook of these famous women. And I'm really enjoying the practice and the process. And when I thought about where to start with Audre Lorde, so she was a really interesting woman, a very strong woman. And I love she always called herself a black feminist lesbian warrior mother poet. And she always really refused to be pigeonholed in her life or in her writing. And she wrote a lot about her personal journeys and experience. One of her most popular works was actually a book of writing and poetry about her experience with cancer. She had breast cancer, and then later that moved into her liver, and she wrote another book of poetry about her experience. She also was a very active in the feminist and civil rights movement, and just a very profound voice. And she has some really great quotes and some really great poems. So if you are a poetry lover, then I want to encourage you to explore poetry, the poetry of Audre Lorde, and also her essays as well. So I pulled out a few quotes by her. So Audre Lorde lived from 1934 to 1992. The year before her death, she was named New York's Poet Laureate. And here's a couple of fun quotes from her. Only by learning to live in harmony with your contradictions can you keep it all afloat. And I found that each of these quotes to be really potent and to be great fodder for doing some personal journaling. So in this instance, what I'm thinking is this is going to get attached in here, but I want to leave this page blank because I want to sort of reflect on some of her words and what do I think about them and how do I feel? And for me, always art journaling is about that combination of the visual and the written as well. And at a graduation speech at Harvard in 1992, she said, I learned that if I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive. And I love that, defining myself for myself rather than letting myself be defined by others. When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid, so it is better to speak. And then finally, it is not our differences that divide us. It is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. And this one to me is so important because I think it's a big problem with what's happening globally, right, in our countries, in our communities, about our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate differences between people. And it's our differences that make us unique and that form the foundation of our own contribution to the world. So I want to just, really lift up and celebrate the amazing and inspiring work of the poet, writer, activist, feminist, lesbian, mother, Audre Lorde. And I'm going to do my quick technique of getting the image of her down on the page. And I do this for a couple of reasons. One, it helps me understand facial features a little bit better. The more I trace over those facial features, the more that let's see, how much detail do I want of her? Probably not too much. The more I start to see how faces are constructed. So I do it in part because it helps me learn about faces, and I do it in part because I am a little bit lazy and I want to get the face down and work on the creative part of the face, and I could spend a lot of time drawing and erasing and redrawing the face. And that's not my intention here. My intention is to just get the likeness of these women down and then look at how I can make that my own. And then I'm going to come in with a ballpoint pen. And I'm going to use watercolor markers today, but I think I'm going to use them a little bit differently than we did the other day. And I have one of my mythical makeover experiences this weekend featuring the Nancy Drew books, the first book in the Nancy Drew series, one of my absolute favorite series of all times. And I don't think I got the graphite that far down on her blouse, but oh yeah, I did. Good. And one of the creative prompts in there is also about self-portraits. And I had a lot of fun with this sort of style of self-portrait. So I thought I wanted to give it a try and honor her. And I'm also really wanting to make sure that I get some of the words of hers on to the page with her. So I'm probably going to have a bunch of words around and behind her as well. Yes, she was Marion, such an important voice in so many different areas and ways. And I would say just such a person of courage as well. Okay, and I picked that up before I came back in and did her face. So let's see if we can get this more or less lined up again. That's what I get for talking before and not paying attention. Let's see if I got that, yeah, more or less lined up. A little more smidge this way again. Close enough. Okay. And she got her master's in library science and was a librarian in public schools in New York for many, many years. And she had her first poem was published when she was 17. I think she was 17, or maybe she was 15, but it was published in 17 magazine. Remember 17 magazine? All right, close enough. So again, I'm just capturing that lightness of her. Then I'm going to come in with a micron pen. This is a permanent pen so that I can draw over that pen. And I'm just going to go over all that graphite. And I'm probably going to use just some ink in here to create some of the shadows and lines, maybe a little bit of pattern here. Later in life, she traveled and spent a lot of time in Africa. Has a whole book of poems about her experiences in Africa. And one of the things that I appreciated about her, and I think is a great reminder for those of us creatives, is to not get caught up in thinking that we have to pigeonhole ourselves, or, we have to sort of, only choose one thing. And again, this idea of, her life was about certain themes, but the way she explored and expressed those themes varied a lot. And she had breast cancer, had a mastectomy, and refused to wear a prosthesis. And so we can see in this photograph here is a beautiful example of her being exactly who she was after that experience. Such an inspiration. And I think that quote where she says, when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcome, but when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak, is such a great reminder. And while not all of us are called to be visible public activists, all of us have a voice. All of us have causes and beliefs that we're passionate about. All of us have art worthy of sharing, and the only thing usually that stops us is fear. And so Audre Lorde today can really remind us of stepping into courage and speaking out on our own behalf or on behalves of others and causes we care deeply about. And I love this picture because she just has like the tiniest little smile. And I wanted this to just be maybe even a little bit cartoony this morning. So having some fun just kind of playing with pen and ink. It's not something I do here on this series a lot, but it's something that I do a lot of in my journals and my own work. And I'm even kind of liking the black and white and debating, do I want to add color to this or let her stay black and white? There's something powerful, and it's unintentional that I've picked artists that most of the photographs of them, there were a few later in life colored photos of her, but I think this one is sort of that iconic photograph. It's why I chose this one. And it's amazing how we can start to bring something to a piece of art or work to life just with a few strokes of our pen. And it doesn't always have to be so much color, so much detail. And I took a great class. Oh, thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. I took a class, a drawing class. I haven't finished it. I've started it um, with Elisa Burke, an artist that I really like. And she had a whole part of this drawing class about just using ballpoint pen. And it was such a good reminder to, let things be really loose and sketchy to kind of free ourselves up. And there's part of me that's like, oh, if I add color to this, am I gonna mess this up? And yet there's something that's calling out for just bringing her to life a little bit more with a little bit more color. And again, letting those lines just be really loose and scribbly. And she's got her hands tucked in her pockets here, so we're not, seeing her hands. And I picked the micron intentionally because of it's permanent and I can add the watercolor over it. Uh, it might smear a little bit if I'm not patient enough to let it dry. Good morning, Yvonne. So you're just joining us. We're focusing on the artist Audre Lorde today. She was a writer, poet, feminist activist from 1934 to 1992. So she lived through a very interesting period of time, born between the two world wars, right? And through the feminist movement and the civil rights movement. All right. So I'm almost thinking I kind of like how she is, and I'm wondering if I put a wash of color behind her, but let her stay black and white. And I wish I knew what Connor did with all my Stabilo pencils. I'm almost thinking a little more graphite or even, um, let's see. We're going to play an experiment here and just see what happens if we just bring in, even just bringing in that little bit darker pen really expands those shadows quite a bit. And these pens, I love these pens. It's called a Fude ball, made by OHTO, but if you look up FUDE ball, you probably can't read that on there. But they will dry pretty permanent, but in the beginning they're just a little bit water soluble, and they have that little bit of that pinky color in them. So what if we come in with just a slight little wash of color here? There's something about the starkness and the drama of the black and white that just really speaks to her strength. I find it hard to talk when I'm focusing in on small details. Yeah, it's what she needed, just that fun little wash of color. This was one of those pens that was stuck in a cup or a drawer somewhere, and then cleaning up the studio, it came back out again, and so it's fun to revisit tools I haven't used for a while. I'm using my brush in circles to show some of the beautiful curly texture of her hair. And then just a little bit of shadow here. And there we have just a really simple black and white portrait sketch style of Audre Lorde. So I'm going to leave that like it is and not mess with that, but I want to bring her to life on the page. So I'm going to color in behind her and then get that dry and put some of her words behind her. And I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do the words yet, but I feel like the background definitely could use a pop of color. And I'm thinking maybe a yellow. I love black and yellow together, and I like the contrast of it. So let's look at a couple of these different colors of yellow. These are the same Staedtler watercolor markers I've been using for a couple of days and having a lot of fun with. So that one's maybe a little brighter than I want. Little too lemony yellow. It might end up being this little bit more on the orange side. That one feels pretty good. And that one's kind of in between, but there's something I think about the boldness of this one here. And I'm wondering if I should just grab some watercolor paints, would go a little bit faster than doing this with markers, but I'm liking the yellow there. And I also have, so this is the fun part where I get to kind of just play and test and make some decisions. I also have these new paint markers, and I really like that yellow. Oh, and I like these are water soluble. Okay, that one's perfect. It's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to turn this around. So remembering to turn your artwork around reminds you to make your hand comfortable. We'll hope there's enough juice in here to get this going. I guess we're going to see. And if not, we'll just mix it with something else. I think the watercolor paper just kind of is really absorbent, right? So it really soaks up a lot of the color and ink. And again, loving just the contrast here of the black and white and the color in the background. All right, so that is not making me super happy because we're going to run out of ink. Let's see how close together these two were. Yeah, close enough. All right. Notice I'm not trying to color it in solid, right? I'm just trying to get enough color on the page to be able to then come back and wash that out. And I'm okay with some of those sketchy lines stay in there as well. So Adrienne Rich is another one of my favorite writers and voices, activists of the similar time period, and she has some great quotes and thoughts and ideas about Audre Lorde as well. And so it was fun, as you go down the rabbit hole of research and discover even more interesting things and connections. And all right, how are we doing here? So we definitely have some that marker is a little bit more not quite as smooth on there as that first one, and it's okay. I kind of like the sketchy look, and I'm going to write all over it, but I love the black and white with the yellow background. It kind of, to me, speaks to some of that drama that she seems so able to hold so much of the tension of all the different roles that she played. And these are so funny. They feel like they're drying up, but I think it's just maybe just the paper. And it's one of the conversations I often have with private clients, or we talk about in my Midlife Renaissance program, is this idea of really exploring all the different roles that we play. And I don't know that we all as successfully label the different roles that we play or have played in our lives as Audre Lorde did, but I think it's always worth considering what are the roles we play in our life, and are those roles serving us? Are they roles that we have defined for ourselves, or are they roles that someone else has defined for us? I just want to maybe amplify the drama here, still leaving it pretty simple and sketchy, but just maybe have her stand out just a little bit more. Not a lot, but just making sure she's popping out from that background. The thing about creating portraits of people is there's so many approaches. There's no, two ways to no one way, millions of ways to approach portraits. So if, drawing people is something that feels intimidating, I recommend just a lot of exploring of different styles in order to find your own style. There we go. Okay, again, I'm loving the yellow. I'm loving the contrast here. And now I want to think about, I kind of like the way it is. And I'm like, do I actually want to add words to it, or do I just want her to stand out and have these quotes here? And again, I'm feeling that sort of tentativeness to, I don't normally have that feeling of, I don't want to mess it up, but I kind of like the starkness of it in the moment and the simplicity of it, and having her be the spotlight. If I start to fill that background with words, then she's going to recede, and I really want her to be standing out and not receding. So I may actually call this one done. Again, my idea over here on this page is, I think what I'm going to do is just partially glue this piece of paper in here, and I'm going to kind of do that way up at the top. And I'm looking again at these quotes as I shared at the beginning. Thank you, Cindy. It's great to have input on these. And thinking about these as journaling prompts, right? And so if I were to think about translating these into journaling prompts, some of the prompts that I would want to explore would be, what are my contradictions? What are my contradictions? And how am I living in harmony with my contradictions? Right? And again, I think we can explore that idea of roles that we play: mother, daughter, wife, sister, aunt, entrepreneur, artist, writer, poet. Right? I am a published poet. It's not something I share very often, and I haven't written poetry in a long time. But I had a few of my poems published a while ago when I was writing a lot more poetry. And I learned that if I didn't define myself for myself, how do I define myself? So one of the things, again, that I love about her was how clear her definition of herself is: Black, feminist, lesbian, warrior, poet, mother. Right? Like, she's so clear what the roles are, and she holds the contradictions of all of those roles. Right? I can explore, when am I being silent? It's better to speak. So when we look at famous quotes like this, sometimes they just look pretty on the page, and so we add quotes because of that. But rather than that, I like to think about, how can I use these really powerful words as a tool for personal growth and a little bit of introspection. It is not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize and accept and celebrate those differences. I could write a whole essay on this because I so deeply agree that every time we see someone as other or less than or different, and we judge them for that and we feel separate for them, it creates sorrow in the world, rather than people are people are people, my personal belief. And so I think about all of that, right? And so just from this simple page in celebration of the artist Audre Lorde, I'm able to just really spend some time. And I have been, like, I got up and went right to the computer this morning and started digging into, exploring more about her life and just how much depth and richness there is and opportunity to be inspired by her, but to remember the power of self-reflection and how it supports us on our journey. So the only thing that I do want to add on here, because I've been doing this on the other portraits, is I'm going to put her name and the dates of her life. And I'm going to call it complete for today. So hopefully this has given you some food for thought, my creative friends, and an opportunity to just reflect on the roles you play, who you are as a being, and really what is it that you stand for, right? Bonnie, that idea of defined roles. Yeah, externally defined roles versus internally claimed roles that I want to play. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining me live. Thank you for watching the replay. Be sure to hit that like button. Let other people know this is a video worth watching. And I will see you guys next Monday for Monday Morning Sacred. I will not be here tomorrow. I am teaching live for the next 3 days with my Nancy Drew class, and so all my focus and attention will be on that. But I will see you guys next Monday. Have a wonderful rest of your week and a beautiful weekend. We are snowed in, got a bunch of snow overnight, and expecting 5 more inches today. So I will be here in my studio painting away and happily teaching all weekend. I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.